Welcome, everyone. Hi, I'm JJ Flazanes.
And I think I'm Doug Sandler, but I haven't said that in such a long time that I don't remember. So I think I am. I will be Doug Sandler today.
I think you are Doug Sandler for the rest of your lifetime this go around.
Okay. Oh, will I be something next?
You will.
I wonder what.
I wonder what, too.
I don't want to be an ant. They live a very challenging life. It's a lot of struggle.
How do you know that?
I see them. They struggle all the time, it seems like.
This is a great start of this conversation. You know why? Because you're projecting what you think it's like being an ant.
Yes.
But you don't know that's... And, this is great. Thanks for bringing that up.
You're welcome. I just imagine that big crumb on my back.
Well, but they may think of it as a victory. And, and they go out so quick when they die. Like, their lifespan can't be that long. Here's the problem with feelings and manifestation. I'm so glad you brought that up. It's such a great topic. So many times, those of us that are people pleasers or nurturers, we take a look at someone else's situation. Let's say third world country, first of all, right? Mm-hmm. And we decide that because someone who lives in a different environment than we have must feel sad.
Yeah, and I don't think that is often the case. I think that we plaster it up on television and we make it look like they should be sad because, wow, they don't have the materialistic things that we have, and they don't have the trappings of success, as we call it here in the on the Western world.
And it's an important thing to remember that when you tell a story and you decide to project what you think someone else is going through, well, that must be awful and that must be sad and they must be unhappy. Stop yourself for a second because you don't know that. And in fact, I think there's been studies done on the level of happiness of third world countries compared to us. And, the more, and I'm not saying that one equals the other, like having wealth and abundance equals you being stressed. It's not. But we all know that having wealth, abundance, blah, 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 material things doesn't mean you're happy. So we have the wealthiest, most abundant people on the planet who are also some of the most miserable because they can't figure out how to enjoy their lives or find and create happiness that's not something materialistic or something that they have to judge against someone else's. So before you are quick to judge and project, remember you are projecting when someone else feels sad, or unless you ask them directly. And it's all relative because simplicity can be beautiful. And sometimes people choose simplicity because they don't want to overcomplicate things. They don't want the stresses of thinking about how to manage something or sometimes having more for some people means stressing more because maybe they don't know they're content and they're actually at peace with a certain amount of stuff and they don't want any more. But I know so many people that just project and get up and use someone else's life and what they think they must feel compared to them as a reason to focus on that and feel badly.
But that being said, if material success is something that you are looking for and it's something that is on your goals, if you want that nice car or you want that better house or you want a higher paying job, that doesn't mean also that you're wrong or that you're being materialistic because you want those things. That could be, in their mind, that could be the element of what success is to whoever is trying to get there.
Yeah, if it works and it does, and it provides you happiness and joy, then that's fine. There's nothing wrong with wanting stuff. Stuff is fun.
I mean, I just look at like the car that we just got, or that I just got, the old Mustang, and what's great about it was, while it wasn't that expensive, it was a material, it was a thing, and while things aren't necessarily, things that make you happy, man, that car makes me happy because I look at it, I see it, I polish it, I wash it, I drive it, the things that I love it. I mean, for me, now, that doesn't mean that without that car, I can't be happy, that my happiness is not wrapped up in that car. But it certainly is cool that I was able to get something that has been on my goal list for probably, most of my adult life. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, and it's fun, and how it all happened was fun. I think the story about how it happened is also something that you talk about manifestation, right? You basically made a decision that you wanted to buy a car and you did the research over Christmas. And then by New Year's Day, we were buying it. I mean, it was like a week process.
But it was like somebody laid out the entire plan for me. As soon as I made the decision that I was getting, and I made the decision, like you said, around Christmas that I was getting it. And what was great about it wasn't just like I came up with cash and the car became mine. It was a whole series of things had to lay out perfectly in order for me to have it, because there was a certain price point that I didn't want to go over. And had I gone over that price point, I probably wouldn't have gotten the car right now, just because I didn't want to go to that price point. I didn't even come close to the price point, though. I mean, I was thousands and thousands of dollars cheaper than the price point. And just how the whole thing laid itself out with a buyer coming to be a person that wasn't even a collector, that happened to get the car through a transaction, was holding onto the car for 7 years, likes nice things, put a whole bunch of money into the car that he's never going to get out of the car. And this connection just put me directly in contact with this seller. And it all happened once I decided, it happened within 72 hours. And then we were literally in his driveway looking at the car 400 miles north of where we live. Pretty cool.
Which we happen to be
going to
60 miles
right.
or so away from the car, which was not normally where we were because we were at Michael's. So today's show is actually being recorded on my birthday, and we are currently in Santa Fe, New Mexico. For those of you on the Manifestation Challenge, we had done a Facebook Live, and I realized that Doug and I hadn't done a podcast in a couple of weeks because a lot of things have been going on, and I wanted to talk about manifestation. So no matter which show you're listening to this on, whether it be nutrition and alternative medicine, fit to love, women, men, and relationships, or spirit, purpose, and energy, I want to talk about manifestation today because we were having my birthday breakfast. I wasn't even hungry. I've eaten way too much. Having my birthday breakfast, looking at Facebook, some of the, thanking people for wishing me happy birthday, but also coming across a post from somebody who I know, and I got a little triggered, and I want to talk about it because I know I have on this show, but I feel like today's a day to remind everybody and to outline the lack of simplicity, or the simplicity. I guess we could take it in either direction. Someone in our women's community passed away recently, and this person had, I believe, breast cancer, and I didn't know her very well at all. I think I saw her live maybe a handful of times in my entire life, but people are having this reaction to her death because of her cancer and how quickly she went. And one of the people who posted was someone who was talking about fighting off her own cancer for the last 13 years and how a recent healer she's worked with helped it go away in 2 months, and then she goes on this diatribe of what to be eating and how you shouldn't be eating meat and we shouldn't be having dairy and da-da-da-da-da-da. Now, I have specific dietary recommendations for people as well. However, I'm going to say this, and I hopefully I've said this before in the show, otherwise it's going to be kind of shocking. If you are someone who, let's say you eat perfectly clean, whatever that means to you, but you have like toxic emotional thoughts, you are laden with anger and frustration and resentment, and you don't forgive, and you just think the world is against you, and maybe you're a little bit fearful even of when you eat because you're so careful about every single thing that you put in your mouth. Guys, that's going to be a recipe for cancer too. Just because you're eating good food doesn't mean you are actually receiving the positive vibrations once it gets into your body because of the emotional set point that you exist at. So while on one side there, yes, what you put in your body is very important, but on the other side, so are the thoughts that you think. And if you had to ask me which is more important, what you eat or how you feel, I'm going to tell you it's how you feel at first. Because I believe our bodies will help our bodies utilize what we do put in our mouths and transform it into what we need as best that we can. Now, if you eat a completely crappy diet,
go Doritos.
Go where?
Go Doritos.
Go Doritos.
No, go Doritos.
Yeah, gross. Yeah, don't eat Doritos.
No, don't eat those.
Please don't eat Doritos.
Or Captain Crunch.
Well, that's better than Doritos. Doritos have MSG. They're GMO corn. They have red dye in them. Oh God, Doritos are the worst thing in the world. But anyway, okay, but it's fine. Have a positive attitude and eat Doritos, and at least you're better than someone who's resenting and harboring lots of negative feelings.
Except for Cool Ranch, because those
Oh my
are,
God,
I mean,
disgusting.
they're cool. So,
Oh my God, gross.
I can remember when my life used to consist of lunch every day. I would have Cool Ranch Doritos with lunch every day. It would be a part of my diet. I had no idea. None. I mean, I've taken, when's the last time I bought Doritos?
I don't think I've ever seen you eat
I've
a
never-
Dorito. Maybe
I ha-
a year ago.
I don't think I've had it. Yeah, maybe. I don't think I've had a Dorito in a year.
Well, anyway, so I'm not going to bash Doritos any longer, but I wanted to make sure that you guys understand that it's not a black and white, clear cut. This is what it is, because this person who recently passed in this women's community, I'll tell you that while I had no real contact with her, I know she was single. I know she seemingly cared what other people thought more than I think is healthy. And the person who made the comment on Facebook, who went on and on and on, also cares what other people think, and has often been part of sort of tribes of business owners that pride themselves on being popular because they make a lot of money. And I also know both of these women. First of all, sometimes the root of breast cancer has to do with mother issues. It is about mothering, whether from your own mother or your issues being a mom, or your issues around wanting to be a mom and not being a mom, or resenting being a mom. There's an emotional root cause for breast cancer. And in fact, I have a client, an ex-client, who had breast cancer twice, and she gave up her daughter for adoption when she was younger. So it wasn't, again, surprising the kind of cancer that she had. So I just want everyone to ease up for a second about whatever it is, whether it be, you're not going to be perfectly happy and content every single day, but at least being aware and giving attention to your thoughts and feelings, because they make up your immunity. They make up your defense system. They are your GPS system. They are your vibrational set point. And many times people aren't even aware that they have these stored emotions, because we don't talk about them. We give them no credit. We give them no power, yet they are the most powerful thing about our lives. Anything you want to add to that, dear?
No, I always look at it and say, okay, so what are you supposed to do? And I know that you always, from my perspective, I'm always a person of action. Okay, so how do we, maybe this is coming, but how do we take those feelings that we have and either reorganize them, refocus, recenter? What do we do? How do we get ourselves out of that mindset or negative space in order to have better thoughts?
You mean better feelings?
Yeah, better feelings. Okay, what do we do?
Well, that's why we record the show first, and why I have sort of a mission to want to educate people about their emotions and about the anatomy of emotions, and checking in with yourself, having time and space, looking at what you're attracting. Sometimes disease can be the wake-up call. For many people, it is the wake-up call to say, what's going on with my life? What am I doing? Sometimes we don't even realize that we're chasing something. We're looking for something. If we think that if we get this thing, that all of a sudden we'll be happy, or our life will change and it'll be different. And it isn't, because it isn't about that one thing. It's about what we're holding on to, what we're harboring, what stories we're telling ourselves. Are we in denial? What kind of addictions do you have? So what do we do about it? Well, you just start to notice, working with your body is going to be the first thing that tells you what's wrong. So if you have a pain, so let's use the body and what's been going on with us. So it is a Mercury retrograde starting today, which for you guys is going to be a week ago. It started on March 5th on my birthday. And about a week before that, we were at an event and I got smacked with the flu. Now, I have not had a flu in, I can't even tell you how many years. It could be even 10 years. And somewhere, and it didn't even like see it coming. I didn't feel any effects. There was nothing creeping up. It just like literally I got up and there was a pain in like a heaviness in my chest. And it was the day that we were flying back from Tampa to Los Angeles. Our flight was canceled. We went on another flight, and second flight was delayed. It's like the most miserable trip back ever. And I noticed that like a lot of other people in my life were sick too. And so I'd asked Lisa Thomas if it was me or if there was something going around. And part of this retrograde, and part of every retrograde, is to really uncover all the things that aren't serving you so you can let them go. And she said, we're also being called to reevaluate who we spend our time with and who we associate with and whose energy, because, you know, you may want to have a really positive vibration and frequency and outlook and an attitude in life, but maybe you're around a bunch of miserable people and you find it hard to do because everyone's story is about lack and limitation and despair and injustice and what's going on in the world and how we're doing so poorly or whatever. Their point of view can color and influence possibly how you think or feel. Now, that's not to blame the other person, but if one person who's trying to have a positive attitude is around a bunch of people who are really angry, resentful, who are looking to be heard and seen and don't feel heard and seen and just want to complain all the time, that's a hard situation to keep your energy up around. So for me, the first question was, what is this flu about? Now, I slept hard for like 2 days when I got home and surrendered to it and tried to get rid of it very quickly. And I did it for the most part. There was a little bit later during the week, there was still a little bit of feeling weak or tired. And then, of course, coming to Santa Fe, Doug and I experienced elevation sickness.
Perfect.
Which was really a fun way to slow down and to say, well, we're not going to try to do too much. So I took this flu and decided to say, well, let's just slow down and be present. When's the last time we had nothing on the schedule?
I can't remember the last time in the last year, aside from that 1 week that we went to Cabo and we unplugged, which was great, by the way. We didn't have the same unplug rule for this vacation, but we have not made any major plans other than having some landmark towns that we were going to go to and spa day on your birthday. So that was planned.
Yeah, and it's like a little surreal, in a good way. I wish we felt a little bit better, but I think the clarity is that we really love sea level.
Yes, we love Los Angeles and we love sea level. And why was I thinking New Mexico was like? I know it's a desert here, but why was I thinking that it was also warmer here all the time?
I don't know. I did too. I had no idea that it was going to be cold, but it's okay. We're making the best of it, and we're exploring, and it's all good. And
beautiful countryside, by the way.
Yeah, we're having a good time. But my body has been communicating with me, and your body has been communicating with you, and everyone out there, your body is communicating with you. And so the question becomes, Doug, you asked, what do you do? Well, you pay attention.
Yeah.
First of all, you pay attention to the signs that your body gives you. And a lot of you know I use a book called Messages from the Body.
I was going to say that book is incredible. Just as you dive into the pages, you just put whatever your ailment is or whatever's going on at the time, and the chances are pretty good that every time it's been on the money for me.
Yeah, well, and that's where you're co-creating with yourself, where you're taking the cue and you're not just blindly like pushing through feeling sick or pushing through feeling a certain way. You're surrendering, you're allowing it, and then you're leaning into it, or you're just allowing it to pass or to be, or to maybe there's something to do about it. Maybe there's nothing to do about it. Maybe it's just to stop you in your tracks and say, hey, slow the fuck down. There's no need to go this fast. Life isn't on the other side of getting this deal. Life isn't on the other side of getting this house or whatever's going on. In fact, something I've never talked about. I'm deciding if I want to talk about it.
Oh, I think we do. I have no idea what you're about to say, but I think anytime there's a hesitation of what you're going to talk about, I'm like, yes, let's talk about that.
Well, it has to do with my relationship, my prior relationship.
Oh, I definitely want to talk about it then.
Well,
This is great.
and there are things that people do, and I'm no different, that when you're sort of at the end of a situation or at the end of not okay, well, did I know it was at the end of it? I was hoping I wasn't at the end of it. But what you do when you're thinking you're in a bad place is you start to freak out and do extreme things. You start to focus on buying something, doing something, moving somewhere, having a family. Like you just do things that like outside looking in, you think that's crazy. Why would you do that? Things are obviously not great. Why would you be thinking about having a family or buying a house together? Or
Can you be a little bit more specific, please? Because I'm thinking that I mean, I don't know what you're talking about.
well, I'm talking about the how we handle when we're not happy.
Okay.
How we handle.
So we go to the extreme. So somebody that's like, I don't know, that is in a challenged relationship, let's say. I'm going to let you complete it. You share what you want to share.
Well, sometimes when you're in a challenged relationship, you do whatever you can to try to save it. You think, oh, well, if I have a baby, or if we buy a house, or if we move, you know,
Well, I think a lot of people that are in a situation where they think, let's take the whole baby situation for a moment, that they think that their marriage would be better if, and they just fill in the blank. And my marriage would be better if maybe we should try to have a child, or my marriage would be better if we could just buy that house, or my marriage would be better if, we just had that car, or if we moved here, or I think you have to fix the marriage first before you put put yourself either in another environment or another scenario altogether.
well, I think most people would, outside looking in, absolutely agree. But there are a lot of people, myself included, that when you're actually in that situation, you make those stupid choices or you think that those extreme things are going to help because you haven't tried or you've tried other things and you don't know what else to do. So you're grasping at straws trying to make things better. But this would be another, again, indication of, and of course it was for me, an indication of this is sort of we've lost we've lost hope here.
So you're saying use that as your sign.
Use that as your sign. Right. Reevaluate your own behavior. Take a step back. Look at your life. Look at how you act. Look at what you're doing and ask yourself, does this feel in alignment with my highest and best good? Am I acting out of a place of calm centered peace, or am I acting out of anxiety, thinking that when I get this thing, and for a lot of you, it's money. When I get the money, I will feel calm. Well, that's not how it works, guys. You have to feel calm before you can get the money. You have to feel calm before you can get the relationship. You have to be at the frequency of that which you want before you're actually able to manifest it and receive it. And that's, again, for some of you, that's like a new concept. And then we keep playing with the how do I manipulate my feelings and my emotions to get me there so that I can have that thing so I can feel good. And it's the reverse. Manifesting and what you've attracted in your life so far is a direct result of whatever you practice all the time.
It is not easy in the beginning to do that. I have to tell you, just from my own personal experience, it is not easy to be happy, to feel happy if you don't have happiness in your life. And it is a challenge to say to yourself, I am happy. I don't need anyone to make me happy. I need someone else in my life to make me happy. I wish I would be happy if my relationship were better. And it's a really slippery slope for you to go down, because then you start to rely upon other people to make your feelings feel better, or to make you happy, or you're putting your happiness or your contentment or anything that you are looking for, you're putting that power in somebody else's hands. Horrible practice. Horrible.
I wanted to have this conversation today because we are in a retrograde and we are in the manifestation challenge. And for some people, that might mean there's an expectation of I'm going to be happier than I am normally all the time because I'm trying harder. I'm doing different things. I'm taking different actions. And I just want to make sure everyone doesn't get into a place where you're beating yourself up or judging yourself if you aren't there, because we may be up against some serious energies this month and even next month that are, again, calling forth an awareness of practices, habits, people, relationships, belief systems that don't serve you. So if things are breaking and breaking down, try to look at it as an opportunity to clean it up and maybe renew a new way of doing things. Because if you have been following a certain pattern for a long time and that pattern just keeps ending you back into the same place over and over again, manifesting the same things, then the pattern might be needed, like you may be called to surrender it and to change your belief system. We were recently in a room full of business owners and podcasters, and we were putting goals out. And my relationship with the word goals is really interesting. And for those of you men, and you've asked this on the challenge, and I apologize, I haven't answered it, so I'm going to answer you now. What's the difference between manifestation and goals, or manifesting and goal setting? Having a goal, I said this to Doug, at the end of last year, you said to me, we're going to do some goal setting for.
And you said we're going to do some intention
I
setting.
said we're going to do some intention setting. And one of the intentions I had for this trip was to be guided from moment to moment into the best situations, because I didn't want to plan. I've never been here. I do know a few people here. We're going to have dinner with them tomorrow night. But I have no expectation. And too often we're so comfortable in what we think can happen that we're not open to the possibility. And that's the whole trusting your intuition. And how is it really to surrender and trust your intuition all the time? So that was one of my first practices when we first got here, was to say, I'm looking forward to trusting my intuition and being guided. So what has happened, it's only been a couple days since we've been here, but what has happened is we stumbled into a place yesterday for breakfast, and the guy that was at the front desk told us about having elevation sickness.
And I could not imagine, as I'm sitting there just on the tail end of either a terrible cold or flu or whatever, the combination of still having this flu for a week and then the elevation side of things. I wasn't even aware that we were in at any elevation. And he started to name some of the symptoms. He said, I don't even know how he got into the fact that we're 7,000 or 9,000 feet up, 7,000 feet up. And I just kept thinking, oh my gosh, every symptom that he's naming, I have body aches, I have a headache, I have, shortness of breath, I have dizziness. I'm like, okay, well, what do we do?
So we talked about drinking more water, and also there was an oxygen bar around the corner, which was perfect because I've never been to an oxygen bar, and neither had Doug, and so we went and we did it.
Yeah, I had been to an oxygen bar, but it was more of an aromatherapy bar. So it was oxygen, but it was oxygen with aromatherapy, and I wasn't into that very much. I love the pure oxygen. I think that was really cool, and then we added a little element into it, which I thought was kind of cool too.
So again, we had no schedule, no agenda, but we sort of end up in the right place, and now we understood our symptoms and we understood a little bit more what was going on, so we weren't so nervous or feeling sick or feeling frustrated that we weren't better. And why am I feeling nauseous? Why am I feeling dizzy? Why am I feeling lightheaded? Why is it hard to walk a block and not feel like, I kept just thinking, well, maybe it's the flu. Wow, this flu's really kicked my ass. But it isn't. It's that we're 7,000 feet up, and then we went to the spa, and that's another 2,000 feet up. We were 9,000 feet, and we're not used to that at all. So, but we didn't know about the oxygen bar until we went to the brunch. We didn't know we had elevation sickness until I went to this breakfast and talked to this random man. When we first got here, we walked into a store across the street, and this woman gave us 2 maps and told us all these different places to go. And so we've been following sort of just what's been unfolding in front of us from moment to moment. And it's led us in a very interesting path. It's also led me to a couple new ideas and thoughts, which I may or may not have had without them, but it's a whole nother way of living. And so I'm the reason why I'm outlining this experience is because too often you're stuck in your routine. And it's partly because it's what needs to get done. You get up in the morning, you take care of your children, you feed them, you send them to school, you go off to work, you come home, you make dinner, you put the kids to sleep, and then you do some work or not, and then you go to bed. You have a routine. I understand that. There are there times for you to stop this routine.
Take a different way to work, have a different place to go to lunch, have a lunch with someone, or have lunch by yourself as opposed to being caught up in having lunch with someone. Maybe have lunch by yourself. I mean, oftentimes we're so busy being busy that we don't have time for our own selves.
Getting sick is an opportunity for you to slow down. How often do you take an entire day off? When we got sick last week, I actually thought, you know what, maybe I should make this trip shorter, this trip here in New Mexico, because we're not feeling 100% and, maybe we can save a little bit of money, and do I really need to go for as long as I had put out there? So then I started to research what happens if we come in 2 days later, and if I decrease the amount of time with the rental car, and if I decrease the rental car went up in price, the ticket went up in price. And at this point I thought, okay, never mind. Here I was being in scarcity for a minute, trying to save a few bucks and also be at home to rest up, when the reality of it is I work for myself. And when is the last time I took a freaking week off? October was the last time I took a week off. And even then I still was working. I was teaching 2 classes at that resort. But, I mean, this is why I work for myself, so that I can take time off.
Yeah.
So that I can do nothing if I choose to. Why do I work so hard?
We're doing that nothing thing pretty well this week.
We're doing it perfectly. We're really good at it. And I have no guilt about it. You know how long it's taken me to get here? Over the years of being an entrepreneur, on days I wasn't working, like, some people have to get sick to give yourselves permission to do nothing. Think about that for a second. How many times do you do nothing and you can't even enjoy it because you have 10 million things calling to you at your house, at your job, with your friends, with your family, and you can't even enjoy doing nothing? So if you're getting sick right now, consider it a blessing or a reframe to take some time for yourself. And whether it's just to stay in bed all day. Now, I didn't enjoy having the flu last week, but boy, did I enjoy not having to do anything for 2 days.
We need to have planned in-bed days.
Remember when you first moved in? We did. That first Saturday when you moved in June, I said we need a do-nothing Saturday, because you had come to California at the beginning of June, and we went to San Francisco, we were in San Diego, we were in Santa Cruz, we were all over the place in 3 weeks, exhausted. And I'm like, we need a do-nothing day. That's the last time we had a do-nothing day.
Well, and just recently, I think this has been within the last 2 weeks, I took Mondays and Fridays off of my schedule so that I don't have opportunities for people to book appointments on Mondays or Fridays. So now it's just Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And the next step is actually going to be to not do work on Mondays and Fridays. So it will be a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday work week, and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday to do what I want.
Yeah, so that's the life of an entrepreneur. But Doug's worked pretty hard for a long time, so he has
just 102 years.
Just 102 years, because he's only 35 years old.
It's amazing.
So one of the reasons, again, why I wanted to do this show today was to sort of capitalize on really understanding and embracing the retrograde, and not freaking out about it, but to take the lessons that are here for you and take it in stride, and don't freak out. To talk about manifesting in another way for those of you who are on the challenge, and those of you that aren't on the challenge, just to remind you that manifesting isn't a thing that you do when you want something good. Manifesting is happening all the time. You're doing it all the time. And if you want to know where your vibration is, just notice what you're attracting. Notice how you're thinking, notice how you're feeling, notice what is coming to you, and use it as a cue to make a change. If you're like, why do I keep attracting this bad thing or this weird thing that keeps happening to me? Well, it's just don't beat yourself up anymore about it. Just utilize it for what it's worth, see it, and go, oh, I need to shift something. So I wanted to bring that up. I also wanted to remind you about the difference between what goes in your mouth and the thoughts and feelings that you have. For a lot of you, I think anger is something that you do not allow yourself to experience. And while I'm not trying to get you to be angry, anger is an important emotion. That it's a processing emotion. And I know a lot of women probably feel like they have no right to be angry, or someone told you it's not nice to be angry, or you shouldn't yell at people. And I'm not saying to go yell at anybody, but when do you actually have a time and space to process anger? Anger is probably one of the most detrimental emotions that we hold on to. It's what causes anxiety and disease and stomach pains and back pain. And it's really a very detrimental emotion if you don't utilize it and process it. But I know so many people that are too nice and they will not allow themselves to express their anger. So just check in with yourself if you're one of those people. So Doug's next question is going to be, well, what do you do about it then, JJ?
Well, JJ, what do you do about it? If you have it, you let it out, you yell into a paper bag. What do you do?
Well, we've talked about a couple different things on this show. I outlined the healing day for some of you that absolutely could be time and space for you to let out some anger. We've talked about releasing what weighs you down, which I don't know when the next one's going to be or where. We've talked about a couples retreat we're doing at the end of the year. And we're talking about a possible men's retreat.
Oh my gosh, a men's retreat. How cool is that?
Well, I don't know. Let's see. Do you think it's cool?
I think it would be cool. I think it would be, and I'm thinking specifically of a handful of men that are in our community that have expressed themselves, their emotions through either the Manifestation Challenge or directly to you on your Instagram or just commenting. I think that not enough guys get in touch with their emotions, and I think that it would be great. I think a retreat, a workshop, a something. I don't really know the format of it yet, but I know that this would be a great opportunity for us to get together as men and talk about feelings, talk about the way to express emotion, talk about relationships. I mean, holy shit! If I was able to go. This is going back to my first marriage. If I was to have the space to communicate with other men in an environment, and I'm sure that there was a whole bunch of these out there. I just didn't even know what to look for. If you're listening to this show, if you're a fan of JJ and in her community, that means something. You're unique because you are in her community, especially if you're a man. That means you actually are living a little bit more consciously than most guys are living. And what I would suggest is that let's get that feeling and let's get that uniqueness. Let's get together and let's work through some of this stuff and let's make it a better environment for all of us men. So I think it would be a great idea.
So for women, I think when women think about getting together to feel support, they want to feel seen and heard more than anything. I think that the value and benefit for women who come to my events is the connection with other women, feeling seen and heard, feeling as if they know other people going through the same thing, so it validates them on a different level. And I don't think that that's what motivates men. So I would say that men, if you were to think about what would be the benefit of coming to an event and getting into a community? For me, my number one goal of what I want to provide you is for you to feel freedom, for you to feel free in new ways that you haven't felt before, to feel released of burdens, of responsibilities, of things that are out of your control, to feel respected, to feel also seen and heard on a different level, and to feel... Again, freedom is just one of the biggest words, I think, check me if I'm wrong here, Doug, with men, that men relate to. They want to feel free, yes?
I think free is definitely a term that I would use. I also think that guys want to know that what they're doing and feeling is okay. I think that there's many guys, and I would put myself in this category, that probably have... some pretty strong emotions that we really don't, you really don't share a lot of the feelings that you have with other guy friends. I'm thinking of Michael Neely and I always joke, and Michael's my West Coast boyfriend. He's like, I love Michael. And, Michael's the kind of guy that I could sit down and have a genuine heart-to-heart conversation with my feeling about relationships with, where I'm thinking about many of my East Coast guy friends. I would hold back. They would probably call me a pussy, or they would probably say, it would just be a whole different conversation. I wouldn't be embarrassed to have that conversation with them, but they wouldn't necessarily respond back. It's like, I want to have an open, free, safe environment to have a conversation with a bunch of other guys about relationships, about feelings, about hardships that I've been through, about joys that I've been able to have to express emotion. I can't tell you, have I been in an environment where I've sat around with 5 or 10 other guys and cried? No, I've never done that before. Would that be cool? Totally, yeah. I think that would be such a great, knowing that I'm getting together with a bunch of other guys to do that. Totally great. And I have no idea what would come out of it. That's why I'm thinking it would be such a great idea to have, because I think most guys have not. Women, when they get together, I think you can have conversations, safe conversations with other women almost in any environment. You could go out for a glass of wine with a friend, have a really safe conversation. You really can't do that as a guy. Guys don't do that because guys judge guys pretty quickly. I'm not saying that women don't judge other women quickly, but when you're a good friend of someone, that safety zone, you're in that safety zone. It's very rare to find that safety zone in a guy's relationship. You have to almost set the guidelines that this is a safe. It's an unwritten rule, I would assume, with women. It's not an unwritten rule with guys. Guys are like so close to the vest with their feelings and their emotions. So for me, the idea of this retreat or this get together, I don't even know what we would call it, but it would be genuinely open, safe conversation where you could feel like you could say and do anything without fear of judgment.
Yeah. And I work with a lot of men, and one of the things that I always get to with them in their either relationships, whether it be their wives or their work relationships, like I always want to defend them in some ways, because you take on sometimes more responsibility than is yours. Especially for some of the women in your life, you have been told that happy wife, happy life, which you all know is bullshit, right? Because it's not your job to make somebody else happy. You can't even do it. But you're told that you should try and that it's your job to do it. And then if a woman buys into that as well, then now she's holding you responsible for her unhappiness and uses emotional manipulation for you to change your behavior so she's more comfortable. And anyway, it's just the cycle. It's the cycle of you let it happen. And then they continue to act the same way because it works. And no one ever frees themselves of this cycle of detriment and of manipulation. So anyway, we're going to put it together, and what's going to happen, even if there's 5 guys, it's going to happen because...
Great hamburger joint, by the way.
5 guys?
Yeah, I love their fries.
Oh, yeah, that's true. But we're going to... So write to us. It'll be this year at some point. And... it'll probably be in California or in Sedona or in somewhere in California is my guess.
It's got to be somewhere warm and not high elevation either. I'm telling you that.
No high elevation.
No dizziness in this process.
Yeah. And so let's circle back to the whole point of today's show and manifesting. So guys, I'm speaking now to the men. If you don't have access to your feelings, and you're in some bit of denial about pain that you've been carrying or sadness, then it's going to block you manifesting some of the best things that you want. And some of that just may be peace. If you're looking for peace, I can help you get there. Between Lisa Thomas and I, and all of the practices that we do at Releasing What Weighs You Down, which is probably where we would start with some of the men's retreat stuff. It would just be more focused on how men process and think, and how you understand information. And again, to lead you down a path to feel free, to feel lighter, and to feel a little bit more of a connection to yourself and a trust that you aren't doing things wrong. You haven't been screwing up. You haven't been letting other people down. It isn't your job to make someone else happy, and there's only so much you can do. And there's probably a lot you're battling against from your own childhood, from your own upbringing that you don't even know, and you keep ignoring, thinking that you should be able to overcome this easily, and you haven't given any time or space or weight to the path and the journey you've been on. You just keep having this expectation of being a robot or something. So we need to take this kind of time to allow it to be, okay? So if we want shift, if you want change, if you want peace, if you want freedom, if you want clarity is so important. Clarity and peace of mind, so that you can actually have a more direct connection. I want to mention one more thing before we close today's show, and it was meant to be in a debrief after the last show with Harville and Helen. Harville said something in the show. I asked a question, and Helen and Harville had different answers. And I know I seeded it at the beginning. I talked about that I would go over this with you guys. Harville Hendrix is an 83-year-old Virgo man who, once we were done with the interview, I remembered that he was born on a farm. His mother died when he was young, and he was one of many children. So I asked him if he felt or if he thought that you could only feel God or connected to Source through a person. Now, Helen didn't necessarily think so, but Harville did. He thought that people were a conduit, and the only way to experience a direct relationship with Source was through a person. Now, I don't agree with that, and I know a lot of you don't either. I know from my own experience, and I think that there was no need to necessarily argue with him. That's his belief, and I respect that that's his belief. I also understand how it is his belief, being Virgo and linear, and probably never experiencing a connection with source energy until it was through a person. Definitely losing a mother early on and being one of many on a farm. I mean, anyway, there's just so many things that add up to, I understand why he has this belief system. I don't agree. And one of the interviews that's coming is the interview with Dr. Eben Alexander, who wrote Proof of Heaven. And those of you that haven't seen his Super Soul Sunday episode, this man not only has proof of heaven, he had a near-death experience that we're going to talk about, who can tell you there's a direct correlation to God. I already know where the conversation is going to go in that way. So, you still can experience your direct relationship with Creator, with Source Energy. There is always a infinite amount of love and well-being available to you, even under every circumstance. And that's not what Harville would say. He'd say you'd have to get it through a person. But I'm telling you, from my experience and based on some other works of other people, and that's why I brought up the whole quantum physics, because quantum physics is law of attraction, but, he doesn't use it in that way. And so that's okay. I still respect the man immensely and think he's brilliant and amazing. But let's be real. We often put things in our way, in place of our connection to Source. What we're always usually looking for is that direct connection with all that is, that reminder that we're infinite and that we're infinite beings. We don't die, and that we are a part of God. We are a part of Source. We are Creator, and we are powerful creators, and we forget that. And so we look for it in people. We look for it in things. We look for it in substances. We look for it in experiences. And not that those things can't bring you closer, but we can go within and work on that divine connection that we all have access to, but oftentimes don't practice. And I just want to remind you that it's there for you. And I don't know what way would be best for you, but I promise you that there is a way for you to have a direct experience with the part of you that is non-physical, the part of you that is eternal, and for you to feel God, Source, love in an all-encompassing way, and to not give up on that. And we're going to continue to strengthen that and to work on that, both through the podcast as well as in all the events that I do, because I always want to empower your highest and greatest expression of what you're here to be on this planet that does not directly involve another person or another thing, but just you in this time and space and why you've chosen to be here. So, happy birthday to me.
Happy birthday, JJ, live from the St. Francis Hotel in Santa Fe, New Mexico.
I think it's the oldest hotel in Santa Fe, and we're gonna send you all some love and be back with you next week. So thanks again for tuning in.
Love you all, everybody. See you soon.